Welcome to This Week in Missouri Politics, State of the State edition. We are here right outside the governor's office, joined by Aaron Shrimp. Thank you for joining us.
Always happy to be here.
With the man of the hour, Governor Mike Kehoe, fresh off the speech. What do folks need to know about the state of the state?
Why does Aaron say she's always happy to be here?
Well,
she's on every show with you.
We've got that pistol right off set. That's right.
That's right. Well, thank you guys both for covering the state of the state. It's really important to me to get the message out about how we right-size our budget, how we get back to that economy that we were all used to before all the federal dollars came through, and then a plan on how to grow our population and grow what's going on in our economy by eventually eliminating the income tax for Missourians, putting that money back in their pocket. I think those are the things that we need to do. It's a bold move, and I think that's why people sent us to this building.
It has been a long time since the state's grown, and there's been a lot of Republican leadership in that long time. It does kind of feel like a bold move might be necessary.
Well, we got to do something, and right. I mean, you and I both know lots of governors, lots of elected officials, nice men and ladies. But every time we have a state of the state or we talk about the budget, we say, well, we're going to grow 2%. We're going to grow 3.2%. We're doing modest growth. We're going to have that, which is good. You don't want to go backwards. But we need dynamic growth. We need to grow the population, grow the general revenue through this new model that we have out there, and really start building on our economy.
When you looked at options for what you wanted to propose today, why did you take this path, and why is now the right time to go to Missourians at the ballot and ask them to put this in the Constitution?
Because I think they're ready. Remember, if we were to cut, and this would be successful, it's almost $9 billion a year that we get from Missourians that they get back, they get to keep. And I know that Missourians can make decisions on how to spend their money better than anybody, including me. And I think that's a good thing, to let them spend the money and put that into the economy. As you know, most Missourians, some will save it, some will invest, I get it. A lot will buy big screen TVs and bass boats and F-150s. So we think...
I noticed he said F-150s.
Yeah, of course. I didn't say Lexus like in the speech, but yeah.
So if this happens, I mean, you're Missouri's top salesman. And nobody can be surprised about this. I saw you at tons of stops all over the state when you were running that said this is what you were going to do. If you get this done, is there a little pressure on you to be able to deliver jobs for the state?
Yeah, absolutely. Every elected official. If we create an economy that will attract businesses and retain businesses, definitely we have to make sure that we use the other tools in the toolbox that we have. One of them is our location. I mean, we're in the best location you can be in the United States for shipping, logistics. I think our workforce is fantastic, and Missourians have a great work ethic. We have a lot of great positives. This is one piece of the puzzle we need to really be more competitive in that economic picture with other surrounding states.
I remember when you were in the state Senate, you started a path to go from 6% to 4%.
Yes, we did.
And there was a lot of, I was there that night, there was a lot of talk on the Senate floor this would grow the economy. It hasn't grown the economy. Why will the next 4% grow the economy?
Well, because we're going incrementally, which is responsibly, because we're going to make sure that we don't affect essential services. But I think this plan that could take place in 4 to 5 years will be more of an effect where Missourians will actually know it. When we go down our income tax a 0.1% and over a couple of years, 2 or 3 tenths. And by the way, Senator Schmidt did a great job of leading what we call the 509 triggers. It's worked. But we think this will have more of an impact because it will be a much larger impact.
When you say it's work, though, when you can go say we're on a path to zero, which I guess would be the selling point when you walk into a boardroom, Missouri's on a path to zero. When you say it works, I mean it will grow jobs, this state will grow population, we will get back to growth?
This state will grow population, this state will grow jobs if we get to this policy, yes.
Let's talk about some of the revenue that you came in. There's a few bills in front of the General Assembly right now that would talk about revenue. One is any Missourian seen all the kind of slot machine things when they walk in a gas station. Currently, I actually think it might be the worst possible system you have. You have local prosecutors having to do, well, your job and the legislature's job and their job. If you're going to ban them, you're going to regulate them and tax them, it would seem like the time when you're talking about moving numbers around to actually address the VLT issue.
Yeah, you and I have seen that conversation on VLTs. I don't know, it's been going on 3, 4, 5 years. Every time you move forward, somebody else says they don't like it that's happening. To your point, there's somewhere between 20 and 30,000 machines across the state. There'll be legislation again this year to make sure we license those and collect a tax on them accordingly. There's people on both sides of that argument, but making sure we move forward, to your point, and now that we're looking at various streams of revenue, to try to figure out what's appropriate for Missourians so that those things can be regulated, I think is important right now.
It does almost seem unfair, the burden you put on prosecutors, business owners. I don't think Missourians want to break the law.
Well, I want prosecutors, Scott, chasing after criminals. I want them putting people behind bars that are making our communities unsafe. We need to give them that relief so they can do the things that are important that make safer communities.
You laid out your budget recommendations today. One of your emphasis areas was that we need to cut, that we need to be more responsible. You mentioned $600 million. Is there a reason that university presidents throughout the state should not be nervous? Higher ed, oftentimes, because it's not obligated, is the first to get cut. You're also talking about workforce development. So how do you balance these things?
Well, that's right. I spoke to many of our university presidents, and they do get nervous because when budgets get tight, we've seen it happen in this state and other states before. Sometimes higher ed is the first place they go to. That's why I wanted to make it crystal clear in my comments that we're not cutting higher education funding that we have in place, and we're not cutting the core through K through 12 for public education. So those are areas that other politicians might have gone to kind of dip in a little bit, but we left that solid for Missourians to know that we think education in this state is very important.
You talked a lot in the speech about the record education funding. I've seen a lot of governors, a lot of Republican governors put record education funding in. It feels like there's never enough. Is there a number in your head that the state should be able to educate its children with?
Well, the one thing that drives me crazy from a small business standpoint is sometimes educational districts will come to you and say, I can fix my problem with more money. That's not the answer in a business climate. You don't just throw money at a problem. We bring in accountability. As you know, we mentioned the A through F. We signed an executive order on that today. Speaker Patterson will be carrying the legislation that lets parents understand easily in an A through F grading system what their district is performing at. And I think when that's out there, that a rising tide raises all ships. Everybody's competitive. Aaron's the most competitive person I've ever met in my life. School districts want to be competitive. They don't want that D or C and when their neighboring districts in A. I believe that grading system and that transparency will help districts learn to get better.
Do you think there's a problem, though, with saying districts that are very wealthy, kids are probably well-fed, healthy, lots of parental involvement? Do you think it's hard to compare those to some districts that don't have some of those things, that aren't as wealthy? I mean, to me, that's a hard thing to say one's an A and one's a D. There's a lot of factors that go into that.
Well, that's why we're also rewriting the school funding formula. So we're taking a look at the challenges that some districts have that other districts, to your point, clearly don't have. And it definitely can make a difference in the outcomes. If kids are coming from a broken home and they're not getting back to a place after school where they have a safe environment where they can study and they're supported, that definitely makes a difference in what the outcomes are. So we want to make sure that we take all that into account as we move forward in our funding models.
Do you worry when you rewrite this formula? When you look at the folks that elected Mike Kehoe, the entire state except St. Louis, who voted for Eigel, elected Mike Kehoe. Right now, the current funding formula delivers a lot of money from St. Louis to the rest of the state. But those folks that elected you have to worry that under this new model, they're going to lose that advantage.
No, I think they have to understand that we're taking 18 months to rewrite it. The formula hasn't been rewritten in 21 years. And to make sure we're creating equity and fairness and rewarding the districts who are doing a great job instead of penalizing like we do to some degree now, and then figuring out a way to fix the districts that aren't doing such a great job. I think that's what we need to do with our public education dollars.
You look to next session as the session when you give your state of the state, you're going to dig into education.
Oh, I'm sure that's one of the prime things we focus on. Most Missourians, most people across the country will think they pay taxes for three things: some sort of defense, that might be local police and fire; some sort of infrastructure, most people can't build a bridge over a river for them to dry on; and then education. I think that's one of the three tenets of what we need to do. But we got to be producing good results. We got to produce kids that can read and do math and science and get away from all this crazy stuff and concentrate on those core results.
You've tried to do that. Do you feel like you've been able to box schools in to where they're not doing some of these sort of ridiculous things that aren't reading, writing, arithmetic? Are you able as governor to keep a handle on all 514 districts?
Yeah, you know, Scott, we have some districts, and you're aware of them, that are just rock stars that just do, I mean, there are people across the nation that want to copy some of our districts.
That green tie, you're talking about Ted LePage, right?
Well, Ted LePage is my man. I've known him for a long time, and his kids. But then we have some school districts on the other side that are not performing like rock stars. So that's the whole gist of what the funding formula and trying to make sure we incentivize people who are doing good is all about.
There's a lot of folks that are going to ask you about things that matter to St. Louis and Kansas City. rural Missouri has a major problem. If glyphosate goes away, the entire bedrock of Missouri agriculture, which is its top economic driver, it has significant problems. The legislature is trying to pass a bill to relieve some of the pressure off the lawsuits. Is that something you can dig in with them and make happen?
Well, I'm a user of glyphosate,
Yeah.
so I mean, and all of agriculture is. The problem that we have with that issue is very complicated, but if somehow it stops being manufactured in the U.S. because of the pressure from these incredible lawsuits, it's going to get manufactured somewhere else, and you're going to have no relief when it gets manufactured in a foreign country.
Communist China is going to make it.
If St. Louis is home to Bayer. It's 5,000 jobs in the St. Louis area, 1,000 jobs in the Kansas City area. They're a leader in ag technology. I think we need to make sure we're open and welcoming companies who provide a product that has the resources it takes to make sure our agricultural farmers know how to use it. That's a big issue for our ag community. They're going to use something no matter what. We want them to use the product that's developed right here in Missouri.
You mentioned in the speech talking about some of these drugs that are in gas stations, available to children. They're different types of pot, but they're not regulated. The hemp or whatever the chemicals are. I saw Catherine Hanaway's dug in on that. That seems like, I'm not a big fan of the government telling you what to do, but you probably shouldn't be able to sell drugs in gas stations.
Well, remember, we have government telling you what to do on cigarettes and on alcohol and everything else. So I look at it as kind of in that category, is that we've got to make sure with this new evolving kind of climate that, to your point, that has, some sort of drug and gummy bears and things that kids can buy off the shelf. We don't want our children having access to that. And you're right, Attorney General Hanaway, she's on it. And I wouldn't want to be on the wrong side of Catherine Hanaway.
Yeah, me neither. Is it kind of fun, though, as somebody, you've known Catherine Hanaway a long time, seeing her, you welcomed her back to the House today. Is it kind of fun to watch her dive into this job and she comes in on day one and kind of just had it down?
I mean, every time you catch me in an off day and say, how's the job going? I say, this is a horrible job, and you kind of laugh. Catherine is loving the work that she's doing. She is representing Missourians and protecting them without overreaching, by the way, to the bad actors. And we have a great statewide team of officials, but I'm really happy that I have Catherine Hanaway as my attorney.
Governor Kehoe, thank you so much for the time.
You bet. Thank you.
We'll be right back with State Senator Brian Williams after this.
St. Louis Carpenters Union has shaped our communities. Through trusted alliances, we deliver skilled professional craftspeople while our business partners provide the kind of quality jobs that keep our economy humming. It's a blueprint that has worked since 1882. Turning Missouri into a right-to-work state stalls progress, wipes out jobs, and kills momentum. Right to work is wrong for everyone. Let's keep Missouri moving forward. Visit carpdc.org to learn more.
Missouri farmers have been doing what's best for their land for generations. After all, no one knows what it takes to feed and fuel a growing global population better than they do. So why are trial lawyers threatening Missouri farmers' best defense against weeds? Our farmers don't need to be controlled. They need to be supported. Keep glyphosate in our state. Show your support at TakeControlMissouri.com. Paid for by Modern Ag Alliance in support of Missouri farmers.
Missouri's childcare crisis is hurting our children, families, and even our economy. Currently, 78 Missouri counties are designated as childcare deserts, where the number of kids needing childcare exceeds the number of available options. Today, some Missouri families are spending more on childcare than housing, and Missouri's childcare shortage costs our economy $1.35 billion every year. Missouri families and businesses deserve better. Learn more at mochampionofchildren.com.
We have a severe weather alert to report here. The storm is also bringing threat of damaging winds and Florida.
Here's the thing. When storms bear down, we step up.
Ready to go?
You bet.
Our teams are always ready to keep your power strong. Ameren.com/poweron.
Missouri Governor Mike Kehoe proposing a plan to get rid of the state income tax.
He made a promise.
Eliminating income taxes was actually one of the pillars of Kehoe's campaign for governor.
Now, he's going to deliver.
Governor Mike Kehoe tells me he's ready to move on a plan that would eliminate Missouri's income tax.
Missourians work very hard. They can spend their money better than any elected official can.
Call Governor Kehoe and thank him for keeping his promise. Missouri didn't build itself. For over 100 years, union laborers have built our beautiful state with skilled hands and hard work. As a union laborer, you don't just work, you earn money while you learn the trade. You could be making up to $40 an hour with top-tier benefits that will help secure the future you want. What are you waiting for? Build your career, build your future, build your legacy as a union laborer. Visit buildunion.com today.
Welcome back this week of Missouri Politics, State of the State edition from right outside Governor Mike Kehoe's office. We are now joined by State Senator Brian Williams. Brian, thank you so much for the time.
Scott, it's good to be back. It's been a long time.
Yeah, you've been gone. It was weird. You were back all summer and fall. Now you actually took a couple months off.
Well, it wasn't that. I did not take a couple months off. I've been focused on St. Louis County.
A couple months off from coming to Jeff City is what I'm talking about.
Yes, I've been very deep into serving my constituents back home in St. Louis.
As a state senator, you're on the front row for the speech. Mm-hmm. What'd you think?
Well, one, I think it was important that the governor talk about tough issues. He talked about income tax, talked about issues around how do we address challenges with our workforce. He also talked about some issues that's a little bit controversial, but I believe we can work through it, and that's education. So I was pleased that the governor recognized that voters should have a say with our tax policies and whether or not taxes should increase for them. And I think it was also really good that the governor recognized that the legislature plays a big role in getting a lot of these things done.
I liked how he has plans, but he actually can walk you through the downsides and how he got there. It's not just some bold, crazy thing that's not thought through. I like how when Mike Kehoe laid out his plans for the state this year, they were actually seemed to be, whether people agree with the outcome or not, they're actually thought through. And I think that gives a lot of credibility to whichever side of the aisle is listening to it.
Yeah, and I think it's important to notice that this is also a governor who's had quite a bit of experience with the legislature.
Yeah.
And being able to work through processes and understanding how government works and how to deliver from that capacity really gives you a unique perspective as an executive. And I do think the governor leaned in on that, even if it's issues that I may not always agree with.
One of the things you mentioned that he emphasized in the speech was workforce development. You filed a few bills this session to address that. How do you view it? Where do you think you can work together? What did you file?
Well, this workforce development process has been something we've worked on for several years now. What we've recognized, not only in the state of Missouri, but in particular the St. Louis region, how do we grow our workforce? How do we attract businesses? And most important, how do we get people working and making a quality wage to support their families? That's something that's been extremely important to so many residents in St. Louis County and beyond. And I'm really optimistic about the opportunity to be able to work around issues with geospatial intelligence, with NGA coming to St. Louis. They just built a $2.5 billion facility. People don't talk about it enough. And I know we'll get into public safety, but I would like to create opportunities to attract people to professions like law enforcement, to be able to serve communities that reflect their officers. So there's so many opportunities to grow our county around the workforce. And I think as a state senator, prioritizing growing our economy has been something that's been really important to me.
It's interesting. People talk about get a business degree and all that, and those are wonderful things. But if you want to start work on day one, go learn to weld. And you'll never want for work a day in your life. There's a lot of workforce development that may not be your traditional four-year colleges, but you can make more money than a lot of folks that go to four-year college. If you get a trade, and it's a good trade, and you learn it well, you're never going to want for work.
Well, that's an understatement. Right now, post-pandemic, we've seen industries like construction, the trades, go through the roof. Not only are they good paying jobs, but they're allowing people to make more money than they've made in their entire life. And they're actually going into a profession that doesn't force them to become financially insecure by taking out student loan debt. And most importantly, going to a four-year institution when they can go into their career immediately after high school. So I'm dug into figuring out how do we grow a workforce that's not contingent on just going to college. And most importantly, how do we do it and ensure that Missourians are not financially insecure in the process?
Pipe fitters have one of the greatest training centers I've ever seen. If you go to that training center, it's not are you going to get a job? It's which company are you going to pick? It goes from you interviewing to companies interviewing you. there's a whole different part of workforce development that I think people initially think a 4-year business degree, but you don't have to go down that road to get a good job.
No, you don't. And I think it's important to really recognize the fact that we should be investing in our skilled workforce. We should be investing in individuals that want to go in and make a quality wage to support their families. And I think also it's imperative that we recognize the importance of being able to get people ready to work day one. And I think there's been so much red tape between people getting a job, whether they're forced to go through a program that's expensive, or they spend several years of their life pursuing a degree when they could have went directly into a profession, again, that'll allow them to not only make good money, but take care of their families.
You filed a bill about property taxes. That, I tell you, the talk of Jeff City today is income tax.
Mm-hmm.
When I go around the state, I hear people talk about property tax. And when I hear people from St. Louis County talk, they talk about the extremely high property taxes. You filed a bill that deals with that and maybe gives folks a little bit more rights in the process.
Well, not only does it do that, Scott, it's important to know that affordability should be something that should be at the front of all our minds. And we're seeing a lot of people that are struggling right now. And a lot of them are struggling to stay in their homes. I think about so many seniors that are getting phased out of their homes because their taxes exceed the value of their home, and they're on fixed incomes. I've seen stories where people are filing assessment repeals, and it's so convoluted, it's so complex. Yeah. They don't know where to start. And these are people that already don't have the time or the resources to be able to go through this process. So what our bill will do is make the process more transparent, make it easy to work through, make it easy to read your valuation, and most importantly, give you an extension on being able to file an appeal to determine whether or not your property tax assessment is even correct. And with a bill that I sponsored a year ago, providing the senior tax freeze for seniors to get relief, they don't even know whether or not they have the credit to determine whether or not their bill is even accurate in the first place, if they get it on time. So we think this is going to contribute directly to affordability, and we think this is going to be something that's going to enhance the quality of life for people in St. Louis County and beyond.
Isn't it a heartbreaking thing? Somebody that spends their money right, they work hard, maybe they're retired, they live on a fixed income, they go through their life and they pay their bills, and they have their budget set. But over the last 5 years, the property taxes and the over-assessments, it's not that they're not budgeting their money right. It's that the over-assessments are driving them out of that home. It's not that they can't pay their mortgage. It's that they can't pay their taxes.
Well, I think about individuals like my grandparents who mean a lot to me. And I've heard on countless instances where we as a family today have to step in and help with bills and help with finances because the taxes have really become excessive. And we know that we have an aging population in Missouri, and that's a population that deserves to stay in their homes. They shouldn't be kicked out. And one of the ways that we can address that aging population staying in their home is making sure it's affordable and also making sure the process is transparent. Mm-hmm. And if you have a transparent process that allows people to be able to keep money in their pocket and not lose money, I think it makes all the difference.
It's your last session. When you look back on these 8 years, what have been the greatest challenges? What will you remember from your tenure here?
Well, it's been a tremendous ride for me. And I think about a couple things. One, my job as I prepare to leave and head back to St. Louis is how do I prepare the Senate to be better after I leave than it was when I came in? And that's by supporting new leaders, allowing fresh ideas to come to the Senate, and most importantly, value the institution, which is something that's given so much to me. Building relationships.
September, it looked like the institution was devalued.
Absolutely.
The way the rules were changed, the way there was something put on in a constitutional amendment put on the ballot with no debate. It does feel like your caucus has a role this session to make a point about the institution, but also the almost impossible tightrope to walk of not going too far.
Well, something I've done my entire career was build relationships, collaborate, and work through processes and systems to deliver back to my district and make the state of Missouri better. And it's going to be important that the Democrats continue to remind our Republican colleagues that the Senate is not only an institution built on relationships, but it's built on rules and procedures. And those rules cannot be violated at the expense of pushing an agenda for any issue or anybody outside of the Senate.
There is no issue that's bigger than the institution of the Missouri Senate.
And there's no person bigger than the institution. And that's something I've learned, to recognize the importance of the institution, respect the body, and respect my colleagues. And it's going to be a priority for me to not only bring back that dignity and respect, but also remind new senators that this is a relationship business. It is not about partisan disagreements and not working through issues in a way that our constituents expect us to.
Public safety is an issue that I think it's honestly, you're in a tough spot sometimes. You have to be candid with folks about law enforcement, its relationship with communities, and be candid with people that want to live in a safe neighborhood. That's an issue you've worked on from the beginning, and I've seen in your latest endeavor, you've got a lot of support in that community.
Well, law enforcement plays a big role, and I think immediately about my uncle, who served 27 years as a police officer in the city of St. Louis. And he retired simply because the job was dangerous, it was high stress, and my family was deeply concerned about his welfare. There's so many families that live that reality. So providing law enforcement with the tools to not only do the job safely, but most importantly, build a relationship with the community. And when I got to the Senate, I recognized post-George Floyd, clearly Ferguson, a community I represent and grew up in. It was no secret that we needed to build the relationship between law enforcement and the community. And we passed legislation that allowed us not only to build that trust, give law enforcement tools to do their job safely, but also we established a relationship of trust and recognized that public safety should always be at the forefront of our minds when we think about our residents and our constituents.
Since you came to the Senate, folks have been clamoring for what you're going to do next. There's been, Brian Wade's going to run for this, run for that, U.S. Senate, Congress, whatever. You've now decided to run for county executive. Take us through your and Lindsay's decision as a family to make this run.
Well, I'll start here. As a state senator, I've had an opportunity to work through processes, understand policy and legislation, and most importantly, execute and deliver resources back to St. Louis County, whether it's the demolition of Jamestown Mall, money to be able to build a new public safety facility, or being able to advocate for workforce development. Working through that process and delivering back to St. Louis is something that I think is going to be really important when we think about the fact that the region makes up 45% of the GDP. So every investment that goes into the city of St. Louis, or in particular St. Louis County, only creates a positive impact for the entire state of Missouri. So I'm excited about the opportunity to get in front of voters, talk about my record of being able to deliver back to St. Louis County, but also bring fresh ideas. I think our region has been stagnant. It has had a very difficult time telling its story, and I think the perception of coming in second has been a leadership problem, and I'm excited to tell our story better. And most importantly, deliver and work through processes to ensure that quality services and the quality of life for St. Louis County residents is growing.
State Senator Brian Williams, thank you for the time. Good luck in the campaign.
Thank you so much, guys. It's good to be here.
We hope you'll join us next week here on This Week in Missouri Politics.
This Week in Missouri Politics is brought to you by the Missouri Automobile Dealers Association, Ameren, Spire, Evergy, and the Missouri Association of Career Fire Protection Districts.